David Pearce is a British philosopher known for his work on transhumanism, ethics, and the idea of using technology to improve the human condition. He is a prominent advocate of hedonistic or biotechnology-based utilitarianism, which promotes the idea that the ultimate goal of human life should be the maximization of happiness and the reduction of suffering. Pearce argues that technological advancements, particularly in genetic engineering and neurotechnology, could be used to eliminate suffering and create a future of superhuman happiness. Pearce's philosophy emphasizes the following key principles. 1. The ethical imperative of suffering reduction. David Pearce's philosophical cornerstone is the belief that suffering is the greatest moral problem humanity faces. While many ethical systems and moral philosophers address suffering, Pearce's approach is both radical and far-reaching. For Pearce, suffering is not just something to be alleviated temporarily, it is something that should be completely eradicated from the human condition. Pearce argues that traditional ethics often overlooks the scale and intensity of suffering in the world. He suggests that if we can create technologies that alleviate suffering, such as genetic engineering, neurotechnological interventions, or other biotechnological advancements, then it becomes a moral obligation to pursue them. Pearce doesn't view suffering as a necessary part of life, but rather as something that can and should be overcome. The reduction of suffering, in this view, becomes a direct moral duty, grounded in the idea that suffering has no intrinsic value and only diminishes the quality of existence. In his vision, suffering is not a characteristic of life that should simply be accepted as a part of the human experience. By leveraging science, technology, and innovation, Pearce believes we can and should work toward eliminating all forms of suffering, whether physical, emotional, or psychological. For Pearce, the future of ethics isn't based on managing suffering, it is about eradicating it entirely. This ethical shift challenges the status quo, urging individuals and societies to rethink the meaning of suffering in their lives and how technology can fundamentally change our approach to pain. The practical application of this lesson is that, as a society, we should actively support and fund research in technologies that mitigate suffering, whether through pain management techniques, advancements in medical care, or enhancing mental health through neurotechnological means. It's about advocating for the ethical use of technology in the service of human well-being, not just survival. 2. Biotechnology and the creation of happiness. Beyond simply eliminating suffering, Pearce introduces an even more ambitious vision, the idea of using biotechnology to actively create happiness. This is not merely about making life less painful, it's about making life better in every conceivable way, through engineered enhancements that could allow individuals to experience sustained, profound happiness. Pearce argues that happiness is a biochemical process that can be optimized through advancements in genetic engineering, brain-machine interfaces, and other neurobiological technologies. Just as some people suffer from depression or anxiety due to chemical imbalances in the brain, Pearce posits that we could, in theory, re-engineer the brain to sustain a state of permanent positive emotion. For Pearce, happiness is not an accidental byproduct of life, but something that can and should be deliberately crafted. The technological tools he envisions for this are nothing short of revolutionary. Pearce suggests that we could alter the brain's reward centers, genetically modify our predisposition to negative emotions, and design systems where positive emotional states are not only possible but natural. This could be achieved through nanotechnology, neuroprosthetics, or even genetic modifications that target neurotransmitter systems like serotonin and dopamine, enhancing their activity to create a stable and reliable state of happiness. This life lesson is about breaking free from the conventional idea that happiness is fleeting or situational. Pearce advocates for a future where happiness is sustained, consistent, and biologically engineered. He calls for the development of technologies that can increase individual well-being on a deep, neurobiological level, helping individuals live fulfilling lives without being limited by the vagaries of genetics, environment, or circumstance. 3. Transhumanism and the evolution of humanity. Pearce is a leading figure in the transhumanist movement, which holds that humanity should use advanced technologies to transcend its current biological limitations. His transhumanist vision goes far beyond enhancing human health or cognitive function. He advocates for a complete overhaul of human nature. Rather than accepting human biology as it is, Pearce proposes that we take charge of our evolutionary trajectory and actively redesign ourselves using the tools of modern science. Transhumanism, in Pearce's terms, involves a radical reimagining of the human condition. It's not about incremental improvements but about rethinking what it means to be human. Pearce's vision suggests that, through advances in genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and neurobiology, we could enhance our intelligence, emotional well-being, lifespan, and even our very sense of self. Pearce sees no reason why humanity should be bound by its current biological limitations, and instead, advocates for a future where human beings evolve into something greater, more intelligent, more empathetic, and more capable of experiencing happiness. In Pearce's future, humans could become post-human entities, vastly enhanced through biotechnological intervention. This could mean everything from cognitive enhancements that increase intelligence and creativity, to emotional modifications that allow for sustained joy, to physical changes that remove the need for sleep or aging. In his utopian future, suffering will be a thing of the past, and humanity will continue evolving into a higher form, one that can experience life in its most positive state. For Pearce, the human race should not remain static but should actively shape its own evolution. This view challenges the traditional belief that evolution is something beyond our control. Instead, Pearce's transhumanist perspective invites humanity to take the reins of its future and use the power of technology to evolve into a better version of itself. 4. The pursuit of universal happiness. While Pearce's ideas are often viewed as extreme, they are also deeply compassionate. His philosophy extends beyond human beings to include all sentient life, advocating for the universal abolition of suffering and the universal promotion of happiness. Pearce argues that humanity has a moral obligation to extend its ethical considerations to all beings capable of suffering. This includes not just humans but also animals, and even artificial intelligences or potential future sentient entities. In Pearce's vision, the resources we develop for enhancing human well-being should not be limited to us alone but should be used to eliminate suffering in all sentient beings. He calls for the ethical treatment of animals and the responsible use of biotechnological advancements to ensure that all creatures are free from pain. Pearce's moral framework is one that transcends humanism and calls for an empathy-based approach that sees the suffering of all beings as equally important. This idea of universal happiness requires a profound shift in how we think about ethics. It challenges anthropocentrism, the belief that humans are the most important beings on the planet, and instead promotes a worldview that takes into account the well-being of all sentient beings. Pearce's philosophy asks us to rethink our treatment of animals, not just as resources or tools for human use, but as creatures capable of experiencing happiness and suffering just like us. For Pearce, true ethical progress will come when we are able to use biotechnology to reduce suffering across all forms of sentient life. In this way, the pursuit of happiness is not just a human concern, but a universal one. 5. The power of vision and optimism. One of the most striking features of Pearce's philosophy is his optimism. While many philosophers focus on the dark side of technological advancement or the inherent flaws of human nature, Pearce offers an alternative. He emphasizes the possibility of a utopian future, one in which technology serves to eliminate suffering and foster happiness for all sentient beings. This optimism is critical, because it challenges the pessimism that often surrounds discussions of technology. While many fear the consequences of unchecked scientific progress, whether it's the dystopian future of AI or the destruction of the environment, Pearce's work encourages us to view technology as a force for good. He advocates for the active pursuit of a world where suffering is absent and happiness is abundant, and he believes that this vision is not only possible but achievable. Pearce's optimism is contagious. It invites us to look at the future not as a dark and uncertain place but as one filled with opportunities for progress. He encourages individuals to embrace technological change and see it as a tool that can help humanity overcome its greatest challenges. His vision of the future is one in which humanity's greatest moral challenges, suffering and inequality, are solved through innovation and compassion. In Pearce's view, the future is not something to fear, but something to shape with intention and purpose. 6. Ethical and technological responsibility. While Pearce's ideas about the potential for technology to improve human life are inspiring, he also emphasizes the need for responsibility and caution. He is acutely aware of the dangers that can arise from misusing technological power. As we develop the tools to manipulate life itself, whether through genetic engineering, AI, or neurotechnological interventions, Pearce stresses the importance of using these tools ethically. This lesson calls for the creation of a strong moral framework to govern the use of powerful technologies. Pearce urges us to think long-term, considering not just the immediate benefits of technological advancements but also their potential consequences. Who controls these technologies? How will they be used? What ethical guidelines should govern their use? Pearce's vision requires careful consideration of the ethical implications of every new development in biotechnology. This lesson teaches us that technology is a double-edged sword. It holds immense promise for improving the human condition, but it also carries risks that must be managed. Pearce's message is clear: we must approach the future with caution, responsibility, and foresight, ensuring that technological advancements are used to benefit all sentient beings and not just a select few. 7. The concept of post-sentient beings. In one of his more speculative and bold ideas, Pearce proposes the possibility of post-sentient beings, entities that are no longer limited by the constraints of sentience as we understand it. These post-sentient beings would have far higher cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence than humans, existing in a state of well-being and intellectual fulfillment beyond current human understanding. These beings might be created through advanced forms of artificial intelligence or enhanced biological processes. Pearce envisions a world in which the evolution of intelligence goes far beyond human cognition, where the very nature of consciousness and experience is redefined. This raises fascinating questions about what it means to be alive, conscious, and fulfilled. For Pearce, post-sentient beings would represent the ultimate fulfillment of the project to overcome suffering and enhance happiness. This advanced form of life would be capable of experiencing joy, beauty, and intellectual stimulation in ways that humans cannot yet imagine. The creation of these beings could be the ultimate expression of Pearce's philosophy, a world where suffering is eradicated, and happiness is maximized for all forms of sentient life, now and in the future. 8. The rejection of existential suffering. David Pearce's philosophy rejects the idea that suffering is an inherent part of life, something we must simply endure. Many philosophical and religious traditions accept suffering as a fundamental aspect of existence, whether as a test, a means of personal growth, or a way of purifying the soul. Pearce, however, challenges this notion. He argues that suffering serves no necessary purpose and that it can and should be eliminated. This rejection of existential suffering is not about avoiding challenges or difficulties. It is about freeing sentient beings from unnecessary pain and anguish. Pearce believes that technology has advanced to the point where suffering is no longer something that should be passively accepted, but rather something we can actively work to eliminate. He invites us to question the assumptions that underlie much of human philosophy and culture, asking whether suffering really needs to exist at all. 9. The potential of artificial intelligence in enhancing well-being. David Pearce is also deeply engaged in the potential of artificial intelligence, AI, to revolutionize not just our technology, but our very understanding of well-being. AI, in Pearce's vision, has the capacity to assist in the development of solutions that would maximize happiness and minimize suffering. AI could be used to fine-tune the processes of mental and emotional health, guiding individuals towards better decision-making and optimizing their emotional states. In Pearce's view, AI could go beyond being a tool for enhancing material wealth or automating mundane tasks. It could be instrumental in helping us cultivate a more profound sense of well-being. For example, AI systems could be designed to monitor emotional states, offer personalized guidance for managing stress or anxiety, or even facilitate therapies that reduce emotional distress. Furthermore, AI could support the development of mind-machine interfaces that integrate directly with human consciousness, making the experience of happiness more accessible and stable. Pearce's vision for AI is one that elevates human flourishing. He believes that, rather than replacing humans, AI could complement and enhance human capabilities, creating a synergy that benefits not just individual well-being but societal harmony as a whole. However, Pearce is also keenly aware of the dangers AI poses. If misused, it could deepen inequalities or lead to a dystopian future. Thus, he stresses the importance of ethical frameworks around AI development, ensuring that these technologies are used to uplift humanity and all sentient beings. The lesson here is that AI is not merely a futuristic novelty, it is a profound tool that can be harnessed for moral good. Through AI, we may be able to build a society where mental and emotional well-being are as optimized as physical health, ushering in a new era of happiness and collective flourishing. 10. Radical compassion and the expansion of ethical responsibility. At the heart of Pearce's philosophy is the idea of radical compassion, an empathy-driven ethical framework that extends far beyond the traditional bounds of human society. Pearce suggests that true ethical progress involves a fundamental shift in how we relate to others, not just humans but all sentient beings, and even potential future beings created through biotechnology. Radical compassion involves recognizing the inherent value and suffering of others and taking responsibility for alleviating that suffering whenever and wherever possible. For Pearce, compassion is not just an emotional response, it is a driving force that should propel ethical action in every area of life, from personal interactions to global policy. This radical compassion also requires the rethinking of traditional ethical boundaries. It compels us to ask difficult questions. If we have the ability to eliminate suffering, should we not do so? If we have the means to enhance happiness and well-being for all beings, is it not our moral obligation to pursue these ends? Pearce's approach to compassion is holistic, involving not just individual acts of kindness, but a structural change in how we view the relationships between all sentient life forms. This calls for an expansion of ethical responsibility beyond our human community, encompassing the animal kingdom, the environment, and future generations of both humans and post-human entities. It is a call for compassion on a global, even cosmic scale. Radical compassion, then, is not a passive feeling but a transformative force. It asks us to act with foresight, responsibility, and care in all that we do, ensuring that the technologies we develop and the societies we build are ones that actively promote the well-being of all sentient beings. It is the foundation for Pearce's vision of a future where suffering is minimized, happiness is maximized, and all life is treated with respect and dignity. Conclusion: a vision for the future rooted in optimism, compassion, and innovation. David Pearce's philosophical framework offers a profound and transformative vision for the future, one rooted in a radical rejection of suffering and an optimistic embrace of technology's potential to enhance human and sentient well-being. His ideas challenge traditional boundaries in ethics, asking us to reconsider what is possible in both our moral responsibilities and our technological capabilities. Pearce's vision is not merely theoretical, it is deeply practical. He urges society to invest in the tools and technologies that can alleviate suffering, whether through genetic engineering, neuroprosthetics, artificial intelligence, or other advancements. His work encourages us to push beyond the confines of current understanding and imagine a future where well-being is not an afterthought but the central goal of our collective efforts. However, Pearce's philosophy is not without its complexities and challenges. His ideas demand a shift in how we think about suffering, happiness, and our ethical obligations to all sentient beings. They require us to embrace a form of compassion that transcends traditional humanism and extends to the entire spectrum of life. It also requires a careful balancing act, ensuring that the advancements we pursue are grounded in ethical principles that protect the well-being of all and avoid unintended consequences. Ultimately, Pearce's lessons are about the boundless potential of human ingenuity and compassion. He presents a future that is not dictated by fate, biology, or tradition, but one that we can actively shape through the responsible use of technology and the expansion of our ethical responsibility. For Pearce, the ultimate moral imperative is to create a world where suffering is a thing of the past, happiness is a universal experience, and the human condition is elevated to new heights of fulfillment and joy. As we move forward, Pearce's ideas call on us to take bold steps in both our personal lives and in our collective societal actions. They invite us to imagine, and work towards, a future that is far more compassionate, more humane, and more joyful than we ever thought possible. By embracing his life lessons, we open the door to a future that is not only brighter but also more compassionate and equitable for all beings.